Venezuela commemorated the bicentennial of the naval battle of Lake Maracaibo and the day of the Bolivarian Navy. Also, a magnitude 5.5 earthquake shook the southern Turkish province of Adana, sparking fears over the recent quakes that devastated parts of Türkiye and Syria. And in Palestine, a new violent incursion by the Israeli occupation forces left 3 Palestinians dead. Hello from the headquarters of Telesur English in Havana, Cuba. This is from the south. I'm your anchor Gladys Quesada, and these are the news. In Venezuela, a naval air demonstration was held to commemorate the bicentennial of the naval battle of Lake Maracaibo and the day of the Bolivarian Navy. In this regard, Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro recalled the men and women who fought the naval battle of Lake Maracaibo 200 years ago. He expressed words of profound gratitude, mentioning that this triumph was achieved by expelling the Spanish Navy, being this a contributing factor to proclaim Venezuela and Colombia as independent territories. He also emphasized that these historical events generated the creation of the National Navy.
The naval battle of the lake was planned with the fishermen, with the indigenous people, with the Sambo and Mestizo peoples, with the black peoples, with the women, with the patriots of the time. And on a day like today, on this wonderful and sacred lake of Maracaibo, with this sun that fills with energy and strength, 200 years ago, our grandfathers and grandmothers fought and won the great naval battle of the lake.
On Monday, the president of Ecuador, Guillermo Lasso, declared a state of emergency in the province of Manabí and Los Rios, following the murder of the mayor of Manta, Agustín Hidrango. The measure was also dictated for the Duran municipality in the province of Guayas, where a citizen security committee was held, led by Lasso. The state of exception includes a curfew, which will be enforced from the 22 hours until the 5 hours the following day. Lasso informed that a suspect has already been arrested for his presumed participation in the crime against the mayor. He also detailed that ballistic evidence was collected, a rifle was found, and the police seized the vehicle, and that would have been used for the attack. Another security committee was called for Tuesday morning to be held in Guayaquil City. Several social and indigenous organizations are mobilizing as part of the call for a national strike, with which they seek to defend the electoral process in Guatemala. Some popular spokespersons have indicated that the purpose of the national strike is to show the population's rejection of the alleged irregularities in the run-up to the second round of the 2023 general elections. Under the slogan, Guatemala will bloom, the demonstrators who expressed to be against corruption gathered at the headquarters of the public ministry to demand the resignation of the prosecutor and the judges for trying to boycott the electoral process. At the same time, groups of workers and students from the University Auditorium in Guatemala City joined the mobilizations on Monday to the headquarters of the public ministry. The health workers demanded the celebration of fair and free elections and urged the government to respect the democratic rights of the population. The demonstrators also accused the Human Rights Ombudsman's office of failing to protect the Guatemalan people. In Bolivia, preparations begin on Monday for the experimental population and housing census, which will be carried out in the municipality of Capinota, department of Cochabamba. The director of the National Statistics Institute, Humberto Arandia, informed that the census will take place on July 29th. In turn, in global terms, he detailed that the statistical cartographic update is more than 99% complete, and only 2 segments in the departments of Cochabamba and Santa Cruz still need to be finalized. He also stressed that it is expected to conclude this work in August and comply with the established schedule. The National Institute of Statistics and Geography of Mexico recorded a slowdown in inflation during the first 2 weeks of July. Data provided by the central bank showed a drop in inflation in the first half of July, getting closer and closer to the Bank of Mexico's target. Last year, inflation in the Latin American countries showed high levels, not seen in more than 2 decades, which led the central bank to increase its interest rates. In turn, the government implemented the anti-inflation and anti-high-cost package to try to contain the prices of certain commodities. However, it has had a limited impact on the headline inflation. Let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at Telesur English, where you will find the news in different formats, news updates and more. Other stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. The Russian President Vladimir Putin has signed a law on the introduction of the digital ruble and the creation of a corresponding electronic platform. The law implies an additional form of the Russian national currency, which will be issued along with existing forms of money. That means that the Russian ruble will have 3 forms: cash, non-cash, and digital. The law, which comes into force on August the 1st, establishes, with the exception of a number of provisions, the basic concepts necessary for the introduction of the digital ruble, including the definition of its legal status and transactions with the currency. All transactions with the digital currency will be conducted through a special platform operated by the Central Bank of Russia. The platform will be available to citizens, legal entities, individual entrepreneurs, as well as executive authorities. The Russian President Vladimir Putin informed that he may replace the Ukrainian grain shipments to African countries. In an article published on Sunday, the Russian president pointed out that his government understands the importance of uninterrupted food supplies required by African states for socio-economic development and political stability. For this reason, Putin asserted that after the suspension of the grain agreement, Moscow is ready to replace the Ukrainian shipments, both on a commercial basis and free of charge. In turn, the head of state stressed that this pact was openly used only to enrich large U.S. and European companies. On Monday, the Russian President Vladimir Putin and his Belarusian counterpart Alexander Lukaschenko visited an Orthodox monastery in Russia's northwestern Republic of Karelia. The Valam Monastery, located on the island of Valam on Lake Ladoga, is one of the most revered Russian Orthodox sites. The two leaders visited the Spaso-Preobrazhensky Cathedral in the monastery, lit candles, and talked to the church members. The heads of state also went to the St. Vladimir Hermitage, where the Vladimir Church is located. The Valam Monastery is one of the most revered monasteries in Russia and attracts over 100,000 pilgrims and tourists every day. And now we move on to other topics. On Tuesday, a magnitude 5.5 earthquake shook the southern Turkish province of Adana, sparking fears over the recent quakes that devastated parts of Turkey and Syria. The Kandili Earthquake Monitoring Center in Istanbul said the quake occurred at 8 a.m. local time on Tuesday. Its epicenter was in the district of Kozan, about 64 kilometers from the city of Adana and located near the Syrian border. The European Mediterranean Seismological Meteorological Center said the earthquake was at a depth of 12 kilometers. No injuries or damage have been reported so far. The quake comes months after February's devastating earthquakes, which reached a 7.8 magnitude that caused a swath of destruction in the region and parts of southern Syria. In Turkey alone, more than 50,000 people died and tens of thousands of buildings were destroyed. On Monday, Tunisians scrambled to find ways to suspend their activities as temperatures soared above 50 degrees Celsius. In the North African country, summer maximum temperatures are usually 45 degrees Celsius. The scorching heat caused power outages as demand outstripped the supply. Moreover, in the capital Tunis, those who were air conditioning stayed indoors, while those who overturned outside sought shelter under trees while trying to stay hydrated. On Sunday night, some people left their homes to sleep in tents erected on the beach. The heat wave that the region is facing has also been blamed for the eruption of wildfires in the country and in the neighboring Algeria, where 15 people have been killed, according to the authorities. On Monday, wildfires raging across Algeria during a blistering heat wave have killed more than 30 people and forced mass evacuations. According to the Interior Ministry, temperatures hit 48 degrees Celsius in parts of the North African country, and 97 blazes were recorded in 16 provinces. The fires killed at least 34 people, including 10 soldiers, as they raged through the residential areas, the Interior Ministry said, revising an earlier toll of 15 dead. According to the ministry, some 1,500 people were evacuated from the Bieja and Bouira and Jijel provinces east of the capital Algiers. The Interior Ministry also stated that 7,500 firefighters and 350 fire trucks were mobilized with aerial support to fight the flames and called on the citizens to avoid areas affected by the fires and to report new blazes. And now we have a second short break coming up. But before, we invite you to visit our YouTube channel at Telesur English, where you will be able to rewatch our interviews, the top stories, the special broadcastings, and more. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. We have a final short break. Don't go away. Welcome back. On Tuesday in Palestine, a new violent incursion by the Israeli occupation forces left 3 Palestinians dead. 3 young men were executed near El Tor Gate in the Cisjordan city of Nablus. The young men were inside a vehicle. According to the Israeli forces, in the car they got assault weapons. However, the witnesses of the event denied the version and assured that they opened indiscriminate fire when the vehicle was driving normally. Minutes later, the military deployed a strong device to delay the entry of ambulances and medical teams. With these executions, 168 Palestinian citizens have now been killed by the occupying forces. Civil organizations in Israel mobilized in rejection of the approval of the first law of the judicial reform that limits the functions of the Supreme Court to supervise the government of Benjamin Netanyahu. On Monday, the protests that started in January 2023 against the reform plan promoted by the Netanyahu government continued. Protesters claimed that the changes in the law represent a threat to the Israeli people, while the executive justifies that the reform is necessary to regulate the control and influence that the judiciary has on the adoption of laws. The changes made in the proposal give the legislators greater control over the Supreme Court. And from Israel, a video was broadcast where a vehicle rammed a group of demonstrators in the capital Tel Aviv in the middle of massive protests against the judicial reform. The incident caused injuries to several people who were in the demonstration after the vehicle passed between the passers-by without measuring speed. This while social actions continue against the approval and advancement of the judicial reform imposed by the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. And the Iraqi government asked the European Union to reconsider the so-called freedom of expression after a new Quran burning in Denmark. The declarations come after a group of people gathered on Monday in front of the Iraqi embassy in Copenhagen to burn a copy of the Holy Book of Islam. In a statement, the Iraqi government denounced the systematic burning of the Holy Book of Muslims and called on the West to reconsider its position of viewing these acts as a legitimate right to protest. The text further stated that these incidents only allow extremism and hatred to put societies in a real threat to peaceful coexistence. And at least 17 people were found dead after a boat capsized in Senegal's capital, Dakar, according to local officials on Monday. The number of people in the pirogue is not yet known, but 2 people were rescued alive. The bodies were discovered by the Navy early in the morning and are believed to be migrants because of the type of boat they were in, explained Owakam neighborhood mayor Ndeye Tab Gaye. Although this is the first time that dead bodies have appeared in the neighborhood, migrant deaths at sea are becoming increasingly frequent in Senegal. It was unclear where the people were coming from, what nationalities they were, or even where they were going to. But the Atlantic migration route is one of the deadliest in the world, with nearly 800 people dying or going missing in the first half of 2023, according to the Spanish aid group Walking Borders. And to face contemporary challenges, Telesur is taking on technological improvements and new formats in its effort to amplify the stories that others prefer to keep quiet. Details in the following report.
Come true. To tell the story of the South with its own voice. The yearning of millions from Latin America and the Caribbean to be visible found in Telesur the possibility of starring in stories that before would have been deliberately invisibilized by the corporate media.
In these 18 years, Telesur has become a genuine expression of formerly invisible realities, telling the stories of nobodies of our continent and around the world. Realities that have been manipulated and hidden by the big media outlets.
Telesur began as a television channel on July 24, 2005, at the initiative of Commanders Hugo Chavez and Fidel Castro. In tune with the challenges of the new times, it became an informative multimedia.
The fact that Telesur Signal is now 18 years old is basically the consolidation of what was once the dream of Commander Chavez, and that now allow us to be brothers and sisters and to take that sense of brotherhood to different parts of the world, from Africa to a good part of Europe. And it is not just about broadcasting an ideal, but all the cultural wealth that we have in Latin America and the Caribbean, and for that, without a doubt, Telesur has been a key piece.
With more than 20 correspondents and collaborators around the world, Telesur speaks the languages of our region. The public multi-state initiative with the greatest global impact in Latin America and the Caribbean reaches Europe, the Middle East, and Africa with its Spanish broadcasting service. With its English broadcasting service, it reaches the English-speaking Caribbean and Africa. It also distributes content for social networks in Portuguese.
My wish is that we continue to move forward, to go deeper, to advance more, to unify our work, which is the most important thing. And my wish is to continue to fulfill another 18 years of work.
In order to build its own communication agenda, this multimedia company maintains alliances, cooperation agreements, and collaborative journalism projects with media such as CGTN from China, Russia Today, Ispan TV from Iran, Al Mujahideen from Lebanon, and the television of the BRICS. It also provides high-quality content to broadcasters without production capacity for major global events.
Telesur came to break some of that hegemony, and it came to build democracy, because when there is more than one version of a news event, it helps to create in the listener, in the viewer, a broader vision of the facts.
More than 600 workers of this multimedia company at its headquarters in Caracas, its production centers in Havana, Mexico, Quito, and in its offices around the world resisted during the last 5 years the impact of coercive measures against the member states.
My wish is that we continue to grow as people, as professionals. Telesur has been seen as an opportunity for many countries that have been invisible. Telesur has opened those windows.
The challenge now is to move from resistance to creative growth in order to multiply the informative strength of the multimedia with emphasis on innovation and journalistic quality of its contents, formats, and platforms.
Telesur has always been in a technological growth, and let's say in terms of its expansion. It is broadcasted around the world. This is not a secret that has been permanent. This new Telesur studio, Studio D, digital studio, we have called it that. It is a studio that will produce podcasts in this case.
Thus, day by day, Telesur makes history and tells it with the tune of diverse voices and images from the global south.
And like this, we have come to the end of this news brief. But remember, you can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also, if you feel so inclined, please join us on social media for all the latest news. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For Telesur English, I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.